Hi, welcome to another episode of The Bottom Line on Sports. He's Jeremy Pink. I'm Jacques Taylor. And as you know, this is a show about the intersection of sports and money, two of our favorite things. As we head into the 2026, we figured now would be a good time to look back at what's going on in 2025 and the biggest stories involving sports and money. And you came up with this great idea that we should discuss what?
Yeah, we got three stories we think that are probably the biggest of 2025, which are the Dodgers and the Blue Jays, two of the top four payrolls, were in the World Series together. College coaches getting paid the big bucks. What does that mean? And also the third story this year that we think is really, really important to look back on because it's going to have major implications in the future is the infiltration of private equity and private capital in both professional and college sports.
Now, before we get started, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. We need your eyes and your comments. But let me ask you this, Doc. So the Dodgers and the Blue Jays are in the World Series. They're two of the four or five largest payrolls.
Mhm.
They're good for baseball, bad for baseball.
Oh,
Because I
I
think
think
it's great that the big boys are winning.
I think it's great. I think sports are better, whether it's Major League Baseball or the NFL, when there's a great team, when there's a dynasty, when there is a team to hate, when there is a team with a lot of superstars. I think the Dodgers check off all of those boxes right now, and that's creating a lot of interest in baseball in general. And you put that on the back of all the changes that baseball has made to make the game more watchable, whether that's the pitch clock, making the bases bigger, putting a guy on second base in extra innings so you don't have to spend, 5 hours watching a game on a Tuesday night in July. All of these things are accretive to baseball and are really making it more popular. And I think, a team like the Dodgers, even teams like the Blue Jays, have galvanized that whole country. I think it's great for baseball.
No, I don't. I like how do I want to say this? I like owners that spend money. I like team owners that spend money. I don't like guys who just buy a team to make a profit because guess what? You're going to make a profit whether you spend money or whether you don't. It's just how much profit. But I look at these teams and you can call me old school, get off my lawn. I look at them as kind of a public trust when you buy a team. Your job is to buy the team for the city that it's in, and you try your best to win. You don't win every year, but you try your best to win. You don't put out a $50 million payroll. I'm talking to you, athletics, or the Royals and the Pirates typically
Hmm.
have
Hmm.
low payroll. If you
Hmm.
can't afford to compete, sell a team. Go get somebody else who can compete. So I don't care, really. I don't care at all that the Yankees, the Dodgers, the Cubs, the Blue Jays all had huge payrolls because they're trying to win.
Right, right. And that makes the game more interesting. That makes the game better. And what's potentially going to happen is now that baseball seems to be in a really good place, certainly in a place that it hasn't been in for, I would say, for 5 to 10 years, uh, we now see a potential work stoppage on the horizon. We now see the owners that want a salary cap on the horizon. I think that's a huge mistake, but it would be typical for baseball just when things start to going well for baseball to stub its own toe, create its own problem, and make something bad happen.
Um, Baseball has the most powerful union in sports. No question, no doubt, no equivocation. And that to me is a good thing because that to me will keep out a salary cap. They don't need a salary cap. Salary caps, you know what salary caps are intended to do? They're intended to stop owners from spending against themselves. Um, I like the fact that the Yankees in general will spend whatever it takes to win. I like the fact that the Dodgers will spend whatever it takes to win. Even if they got like $1 billion due sometime in like 2047. I don't care.
Because of all the deferred
Yeah,
compensation, right? Yeah,
they're trying to win right now. To me,
yeah.
that's the name of the game. These guys, the people that own teams are billionaires. You really can't buy a team unless you're a billionaire.
Hmm.
Quit being cheap and do what you're supposed to do and try your best to win. We got a billionaire in Texas. Hey, we didn't win the last 2 years. We're cutting payroll. Like, dude, ain't nobody going to see your team. You cut payroll, you go back to being an irrelevant franchise. Nobody's going to watch, relatively speaking.
Yeah, yeah. It's not, and I agree with you. It's not just those spending money, it's how the money is being spent. And I think the way the Dodgers are run as an organization and the owners there, they're spending money in a very, very intelligent and smart way. They're very aggressive. They are playing within the, construct of the rules right now. And not only are they attracting better players, they're managing their business better than everybody else. That's as much a part of their success as just simply going out and buying the best players.
Yeah, let me ask you this because you're a money guy.
Hmm.
Deferred contracts, you rock with them or not?
Why not? Why not? Deferred compensation for executives or high paid people is a pretty common practice. So why not make that happen in baseball?
Okay,
I
see,
don't see
well,
any.
I guess most people say, well, $1 million in 2021 is $850,000 in
Mhm,
2045.
mhm.
So you're losing money.
Yeah, as a player, you're losing money, but again, you can look at any sort of equation to figure out what the time value of money will be in 20 years as a player, or if you have a good agent. I think that the opportunity that these teams have is right now they're not burdened with cash flow, so they're able to spend on almost everything else. So if
Right.
you look at your business longer term and you feel that you can generate significant cash flow over the next X number of years, in order to pay what your deferred comp is over time, you're not that concerned about it. You also might just be a billionaire with a lot of vanity who says, I want to say that I owned a team that won a lot of championships, and I'll deal with the money that I owe 10, 20 years down the road. I'll deal with that later.
What's the risk that the money ain't there for the player? I mean, do they have to put it in a escrow fund like I got to do my property taxes?
I haven't seen the contracts yet. I'm sure that there's some level of insurance that the players get. I'm sure there's some level of protection they get in their contracts. And there very may well be an escrow, but I just haven't seen the
Yeah.
contract, so I
No,
don't know. But there's several ways in order to mitigate that risk for sure.
no, I think it's a great idea for the players. Like if you're Otani and you've got $25 million a year in endorsements, you don't really need the money right now. Like there's nothing you're going to do except invest it anyway, or gamble with it.
Mhm.
But but so okay, fine. When I'm 55 years old and I don't have anything to do, it'd be nice for me to just not have to worry about anything
Well,
because I know I got $27 million
let me
coming in this
let
year.
me ask you this question. It's a very similar concept. Jacques Taylor just won the lottery. All right, congratulations. First of all, you should give your Ohio State friend at least half of it, but that's a different story. But you just won the lottery, and you have the option to take, $100 million today,
Right.
or you can take, let's say, $11 million, $12 million a year over the next 20 years. Okay. Those two numbers were going to be roughly equivalent if you assume, the money grows at
Right.
X% a year, blah, 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 blah. Would you take the 100 million today, or would you take the deferred payment over the next 20 years?
I'm,
That's really what the baseball players are kind of
yeah. Well,
figuring
see,
out now.
if
Now
I'm the baseball players,
the owners are doing it for financial reasons to kind of manage their cash flow over time. But
if I'm the
what would you do as a
baseball
player?
player, I probably take it over the years because I'm most of them to get to that level contract, you're already rich. So it's
But what would you do? I'm curious. What would you do if you had that opportunity? You won the lottery. It's 100 million today, or 12 million a year for 20 years, or whatever the equivalent would be.
I'd probably take the lump sum
And why is that?
because I want at my age, I want it all right
Oh,
now.
I see. Okay, that's right, right.
And
What
then
if
I hire some smart guy to put it in
what what
some.
if what if AJ won the lottery? What would you do? What would you
No,
advise him to do? He's the age of like athletes now. What would you advise him to
no,
do?
I tell him to spread it out because he'd do something dumb with the first 2 years he'd do something dumb, and then by the time he got to 30 he'd be smart, and then that last 10 years he was getting money, he'd know how to invest it, and he wouldn't have 7 Lamborghinis and 4 houses.
Yeah. And so with that answer, I kind of was thinking about that, which is to say, that would probably be my advice to a young baseball player right now. If you have the opportunity to defer your money till later, you may want to do that. That may be protection from yourself. You
Yeah,
you you may know how to handle that lump sum of money when you're 35 much better than you are when you're 23.
it's really when you say it like that, it's really no different than people who have family trust, and they say at 18
It's
you get
exactly
twenty
what it is.
thousand
Yeah.
dollars, at
Yeah.
25 you get 50, at 30 you get 100, and at 40 you get 1 million.
Yeah, but let's not kid ourselves. The owners aren't doing it for that reason. The owners are doing it for not for altruistic reasons. The owners are
No,
doing it because it's a better way they think for them to manage the business and have success now. But as a player, it might actually be as a young player who's
well,
not who isn't used to managing that kind of money, it might actually be an advantage.
well, check this out, man. Let's go back to the original. You think Bobby Bonilla is happy every July 1st that he's got deferred compensation for another 10 years or whatever it is?
Absolutely. The million, what is it? It's sometime in
It's like a
July every
million
year he gets a
dollars.
million bucks, right? It's
Yeah.
great. It's great. I think it's a fantastic deal for him. And yeah, I again, I don't have an issue with that. I think what happens though is that that is potentially a way to yeah, I think this will, however, hasten other owners to try to drive a salary cap. And that I think is going to be I think that's going to be the big challenge in next year for baseball.
Bottom line for me, I don't think baseball will ever have a salary cap. The union won't go for it. And the second part of that is keep spending money, fellas. Keep spending that paper.
Yeah, but I'm very similar. The bottom line for me is payrolls are going to continue to expand. Uh, they'll be jabbering about a work stoppage next year, but they're going to continue to expand, and the players are essentially going to continue to get paid, and it's not just going to be the big teams that are going to be successful. It's going to be the teams with owners who know how to play the game, the money game better.
So that takes us into the second story we talked about, which is private equity getting into professional sports, specifically football, pro football, college football, professional sports. Here's the question for you: what has private equity ever made better?
Well, as you know or may not know, I was CEO of a private equity backed company. Yeah. So,
That's
uh,
why I
right,
teed you
which
up.
we made much better when we got there. But no, I look, I think the intent of private equity in very good private equity can be really, really good. They can be better stewards of capital than original owners may be. So
Right?
oftentimes what you'll see with very good private equity as they get involved in businesses that have either been started by people and have, you know, grown to a certain level, but and these are incredible entrepreneurs or people who can take a business to another level. Private equity can come in and try to, consolidate businesses or roll up businesses together. And there's some good things that private equity's done, but there's some bad things that private equity's done, and I think they have a pretty bad reputation. I do think that private equity in professional sports will likely have not sort of the overarching impact that it has in maybe other industries just because of the nature of the beast, because you're not going to create 100 more NFL teams. There's a finite number of teams that are there.
Right?
There's a finite number of players. It's a very different animal than industries where you're trying to just consolidate everything or grow market share. What you're trying to do is make the franchise operate better and to do better in the construct of a 30 or 32 team league. So I think that what I think is going to happen with private equity coming into these organizations is I think there's going to be a greater emphasis on the GM side of the business, on the management side of the business. There's going to be
Yeah.
a greater emphasis on, additional revenue streams that may be out there. I think it's going to put pressure on some of the larger contracts that are negotiated, as a league. I think that's what's going to happen. I don't think it's going to have a similar sort of dramatic effect that it had on other industries, just because of the nature of,
So,
professional sports.
so when a private equity firm invests in an NFL team, what are they doing? They're just trying to create more. What's the selling point
Well,
for them?
for them, it's I'm investing X amount of dollars so I can get Y amount of dollars, or
Back,
3X amount of dollars in the future. And because I'm an investor here, I'm going to say, hey guys, here's a way that we can make more money. And as if we make and if the organization makes more money, we all make more money down the road. That's, I think, that the intention there.
yeah,
And I also think, again, professional sports and media or sports and media are often vanity plays too. So I think there's certain organizations, and I don't, again, I don't know anything specifically, but I think there's going to be certain organizations and certain financial firms, private equity firms, that just want to say, "Hey, we own part of a team." I think there's a big part of that in there that's
right.
that's part of this too.
I find it all interesting because private equity is really getting involved in college football now, because all these teams now have to raise money, find partnerships so that they can pay their players.
Right.
And so it's really getting involved. And the question is always, as they get involved, are they silent partners or are they squawking partners? Because I think that they have a much bigger hold on colleges because colleges don't have that kind of capital.
Well, they don't have that kind of capital. They also don't have any sort of structure to college football right now. College football is a
It's the wild, wild west, baby.
yeah, exactly. It's wild, wild west. So that they will likely have a voice in terms of how college football ultimately gets structured. I also think, we've talked about this in other shows, is I also think the general manager in a college football program or college basketball program is going to become more and more important. And I think you're going to end up with an AD, a general manager, and a head coach, all sort of working together to try to figure out where does college football go next from a pure business and money point of view. And I think private equity or private capital, they're different, but if there's private equity that comes into the comes into let's say the Big Ten, which I think there's been talk about, that's gonna, they're gonna be a voice in terms of how the dynamic of the sport evolves from a business point of view in the future, for sure.
I think they're going to dip into everywhere, man. Because once the Big Ten, does its deal or whatever, then every other major conference is going to do their deal based off the formula that whatever the Big Ten does,
Hmm.
which means the SEC will want a little more from its partner than the Big Ten got, and the other conferences will fall in line with a little bit less. But then I think what happens is, okay, Ohio State's got its money from its Big Ten private equity investment, then they'll go do their own deal with their own school and their own department. And I think, as they do theirs, Texas, Alabama, all the other schools will eventually do their own deals. We just saw one last couple weeks ago with Utah.
Of course,
Like,
that's
like
true.
if Utah's getting a deal, it's only a matter of time till everybody else gets one.
Yeah, yeah. It's a symptom of the professionalization of college sports that you see private equity getting in, you see investors, you see private capital trying to get into it because, as you said, it's wild, wild west. The At least if the last few years of NIL and paying players has shown us anything, it's showing us that college football is going to grow. This is a
Yeah.
good thing from a business point of view, from a viewership point of view, from an overall interest point of view in the United States. It's growing. And investors love businesses that grow and love to figure out how can I put my money in to really make the businesses grow even more. And I think that's the attraction right now to college sports.
No, I think it. I don't know, man. It's hard for me because it's one of the big dogs. I mean, none of this at one level affects Ohio State. It affects much smaller programs in terms of whether they can pay money to keep up and whether they can keep their players. Ohio State's not losing any player they really want to keep because of money. They're not losing any recruit that they really, really want to keep because of money.
Mhm.
So it's a different world for them in Alabama and Michigan and well, maybe not Michigan anymore, but those schools up there like that. And
Hmm.
so, I don't know how it's going to play out. But it's hard for me. I feel conflicted because it ain't never been equal. As Ed Ogeron said on the podcast last week, now we can walk into a cash with the front door instead of the back door.
Right.
So teams have been paying players forever.
Yeah.
And the haves have always paid, and the have-nots have always wished they could pay. So it's not really any different. The big boys still have more money than the other teams, and so you see these same 12 squads every year compete for a national championship, and every now and then some new blood will flip in for a little while and bang out, and then you'll have a team. The best example I think is college football is going the way of Premier League soccer. Where you have a few clubs every year that really compete to win the Premier League. And then every now and then you have Manchester City, which is Texas Tech. Some billionaire
That's
shows up
right.
out of
That's
the
exactly
blue
right. Yeah.
and says, "Hey, I went there. I want us to be good.
Right.
Here's $1 billion. Let's go be good."
Hmm.
And maybe in the next 10 years, some other schools alum will be a billionaire and be like, you know what? We should have a good football program. Here's a $100 million endowment. Let's go compete. And they'll show up. But outside of that, man, it's going to be the same, 10 teams. And every now and then you'll have a Leicester City pop up and win it. And then they'll go back to being Leicester City after a couple of years.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think, the infusion of private equity, if it's from an operating standpoint, will impact the broader business structure itself. It may not impact some of the teams that are traditionally powerhouses, traditionally strong, because they're attracting money from boosters anyway, and that's not going away because boosters want to have impact.
They like
Boosters
the
want to,
vanity play.
yeah, exactly. So college sport, like all sports and media, so much investment and so much capital is there's some rational capital, but there's a ton of vanity capital out there, and that's not going away at all.
Bottom line for me, private equity. I think it's going to be okay. I'm on board because my team's going to win anyway.
But bottom line for me, it's going to usher in changes for sure. It's probably going to usher in changes in terms of the structure of college sports. But agree with you, the same top teams are going to be the same top teams 15 years from now as they are today. Private equity is impacting college sports, but I think the other big story that we can't ignore for 2025 also is around college sports, and that's these college football coaches that are getting paid. It's unbelievable what's happened just in the last 6 weeks. You think this is even remotely sustainable?
You know what? Yes. And here's why. There's two factors. Factor number one, teams are selling their soul to win. So if they think Jeremy Pink can help them win, they will money whip you to win. And here's the other thing: is like Kirby Smart's the top coach in the food chain right now. I think he's $13 million a year. Ryan Day is probably $13 million a year. If Ryan Day or Kirby Smart wins the national championship, thank you for this national championship. Let's rip up the old contract. Here's a new contract paying you $16 million a year. In which case, everybody else moves up a notch. So that's factor number one. Factor number two is my man, Jimmy Sexton. And I know Jimmy Sexton because I've known him for 20 years because he used to be he's part of Bill Parcells' agent, and obviously Bill Parcells coached Cowboys. And he had several players at the Cowboys because he had several players from Tennessee, which is where he's based. So I've known him, for 20 years or
So
so.
he's sort of the super agent that's kind of supercharging these college coaches'
Dude,
contracts.
yes, he's got so many. He's the agent for so many coaches that it's really like a monopoly on the situation. So if I get a job offer, he also represents me, Jeremy, and five other coaches, and so he really much leverages I mean, it's brilliant for him. He pretty much leverages everybody against everybody, and he's getting everybody. Hey, Jacques is up for this job, but I hear Jeremy's kind of a front runner too. Oh, we don't want to lose Jeremy. Let's give him a new deal. Well, he likes something in the $12 million range to stay. All right.
No,
Okay, here you go.
I would take something in the $10 million range. So
And he
that's me.
leverages everything.
Yeah.
And he's in a power position, and he's mastered the art of the deal. And so, as long as he's running college football and their coaches, and why is it going to stop? Because every coach who's up will be like, well, he gets everybody a raise.
Hmm.
Why wouldn't you go to him?
Hmm.
Because eventually he's going to take care of me. And he's probably like most other people. He builds his own. He says, "Oh, okay, with my fee, you need to make 13.6. That way, my fee, and that gets you to whatever number you want, and includes my fee in it. So you're not really even paying me; they're paying me. You
Yeah,
know what I mean?
I do, and that makes sense. I think though that the college football salaries, coaching salaries right now, probably have plateaued at least for a while. I think as college sports and college football changes so dramatically. I think what we've seen is a rush that's kind of reset the market.
Okay.
Okay. And I think the reset of the market has happened because you've had a lot of prominent coaching vacancies, and you've had a lot of prominent coaches want to make the switch and make the move. So I think what we've seen is the that particular market reset to its level right now. So
Well,
I
maybe that means that everybody's been paid that needs to be paid.
it might be, but it also means that now if I'm a college football program, I now have a true sense of the market, what the
Yeah.
market actually is pay, what the market actually is right now. And I don't think that market existed 10 years ago because really there were only a very small number of programs that could compete. There's now more programs that have the ability to compete or at least have the possibility to compete. And I think that's kind of opened up the market a little bit more, but I think it's just kind of reset and plateaued. And so I think you're still going to see huge college football. You're going to see huge contracts going in the next couple of years, but certainly they won't have the frenzied increases that we've seen for the last 2 years.
That might be right. I'm trying to think. Like, and maybe a guy like Joey McGuire at Texas Tech is a great example. Like, he got a new deal, and his deal was for $7 million a year, which you and I would take that. But as a recent coach, that's like, wow, that's kind of low in the market. But it might be like I've said before. When we've had some off-air conversations, like sometimes you understand. You know, the smartest people, regardless of their profession, are people who understand what's important to them. And if you're Joey McGuire and you're a Texas high school football coach and you're living the dream coaching Texas Tech, and literally 5 years ago, you're making $100,000 coaching Cedar Hill High School, which is about 2 miles from my house,
Mm-hmm.
and now you're making 7 million, and somebody says, "Hey, we'll pay you 7 million," you might just be like, "I am in Texas, coaching college football, living a dream, making $7 million. I'm good. I don't, if you want to pay me more, that's fine, but
Yeah.
I'm good at
Right.
seven."
And I think that's exactly right. And I think that's what I mean by the market resetting. Because I think that, if he was making $2 million a year, he's certainly going to look for a new contract. I think he's looking around, and again, I don't know him at all, but I surmise that he you're looking around and going, listen, Texas Tech can buy any player in the country that they want right now.
Yeah,
Texas Tech is got a bye in the college football playoff. Texas Tech is playing among the big boys. This is a very, very good situation. Oh, and by the way, I don't have the pressure that I would have at Alabama. I don't have the pressure that I have at Georgia. I don't have the pressure that I have at Ohio State.
yeah,
So I think that that's what's happened to the market. It's kind of reset in that regard. I think you're going to get paid more at one of the premier programs because of expectations and pressure.
right,
And I think that's what's happened. And so I think the market has really, really fundamentally reset right now. And I even think you see that with James Franklin's contract at Virginia Tech. It's
yeah,
not,
nine and
it's
a half million.
yeah, it's a good contract, but it's not at the same level as the top programs because there isn't the expectation and there isn't the pressure there. So that contract. So I think that's kind of what's happening in the market. So I think the market has really fundamentally reset itself in the last 2 years. And I think we'll see, look, you're always going to have a bidding frenzy for the next great coach or the next, top player or prospect. But in general, to me, the market's kind of reset this year.
I get that because right now, as a coach, you can't really say I want to be paid more than Kirby Smart because you haven't accomplished what Kirby Smart's done.
Mm-hmm.
And so until there's somebody else, like I said, maybe if Ryan Day wins, they give him a raise. But again, then it's going to be even I can't command that
Well,
because I haven't won a couple championships.
right, but I think what happens is that these contracts, as they start to evolve over the next 2, 3, 4 years, you're going to have a base that's going to be of a certain level, but then you're
Yeah,
going to start to see really differing types of incentives for these, college coaches contracts to have. And that's for two reasons. One is incentives generally can work, and two, it means that the ultimate payouts may not be as great in the future because the payouts are usually linked to a base salary. They're not linked to the incentives. So I just think the market has just shifted and changed. And I think it's been incredible to watch, but I think it's kind of, it's called, obviously a lot of people refer to it as a carousel. The carousel was like spinning off its axis, 6 weeks ago. It's kind of calmed down now, and you can kind of jump on the carousel and jump off of it right now. And I think that's it's going to be that way. I think at least for the next year to 2 years because so many of these contracts are longer term right now as well.
bottom line for me, Jimmy Sexton run things, and until he doesn't, them contracts, my friend, are going to keep going up.
But bottom line for me, and I kind of just said it, is that the market's reset. The college coaches market has reset a little bit, but the big programs and the top hot coaches are still going to always get paid the big money.
Makes sense to me.
Yep.
Before we get out of here, we do have to talk about Ohio State 2025. Biggest story. Hey, they got Legend Bay to decommit from Tennessee and show up.
I could barely sleep this week. I was so excited. Yeah.
I don't get to. It's for me. It's college recruiting is not what it used to be because it used to be. You used to wonder are they picking some? Is a prospect picking a school because he likes the coach? He likes the receiver coach better. He likes what's he like better? Nah, it's 99% is he got more money at one place, and so it's not even about. I don't even take it personally when somebody goes somewhere else. So recruiting for me is just who's your squad, who'd you pay for, and let's see if you can coach them up and get them, make them maximize their talent.
Yeah, I think the Ohio State story for me is they won the national title in the first 10 days of the year, or 11 days of the year. That's the big story this year. And you have to give Ryan Day and his coaching staff a tremendous amount of credit this year because they could have easily had a down year. They had a very strong year again this year. Uh, and the program looks like especially compared to some of its, peers in the Big Ten, it looks like it's in pretty good shape and it's pretty stable, at least for now. And I think that's kind of what I took out of this year for Ohio State. But look, the college football has become far more competitive now than it used to.
Right?
And you're not going to see, I think if we're talking 5 years from now, you're not going to see, 13-0, 12-1, 11-2, and that's it's going to be more like the NFL where people are going to have 2 or 3 losses and it's just going to become a different kind of animal and there's going to be a different expectation for coaches and it's going to be far more geared toward winning the college football playoff than
Yeah.
it is almost anything else. And so I think Ohio State, I think you started to see that with Ohio State's performance as a college football player at the end of playoff at the end of 24 and the beginning of 25. And we'll see how it plays out this year.
No, that's it. That's it for me too. So until we chat again, you guys take care and keep an eye on your money and your sports. He's Jeremy Pink. I'm Jean Jacques Taylor. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks, everybody.